Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and there's something magical about a child in a tent or a teepee. It's their own little space, it's their own little world where they can create and have lots of imaginary games to play. It's also a nice spot for them to curl up and read a book and just have a quiet time. Teepees and tents are so much fun, and they're very easy to make. And the teepee pattern is a free pattern, and it's from Northcott. You're going to need 4 yards of fabric for that body of the tent, 3/4 of a yard for this little area here that these long poles fit in. And I'll put a link in the description for you. These wooden dowels are 1 inch by 72 inches long. You can get them at any hardware store, and they already have a nice finish to them, so you don't need to sand them. You can also get non-slip feet for the poles, and they will be 1 inch feet. They're just rubber ends that you slide onto the end of the poles. So you're going to need 4 ends to go with the 4 poles. On the opposite end of the pole, measure down 10 inches. You need to drill a hole. This hole is going to have to be the same size so that a piece of rope can fit right inside that hole. So you're going to need some rope. So I found my thin rope first and matched the hole to go with my rope. And you only need about 2 yards of this rope. And that's all the hardware we're going to need. Now we need to cut the fabric. I'm also going to use fabric that is from Northcott, and it's called Little Genius. Here is the cutting directions for that tent piece. And the picture shows the fabric opened. So this would be the fold part because each of these edges are a selvage edge. And you're going to cut these wedges out of them, but you're going to be able to mark them first with the fabric folded in half. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean, just with a piece of paper first. So just as it comes off the bolt, you're going to have it folded in half. You're going to measure along one edge and measure along the other edge. Both of these edges are the selvage. So I have the fold of the fabric and both of the selvages together. So what you can do after you've squared this up is put those measurements along one edge and then put those top measurements along the top edge. So you're going to have some that are small and some are wide, and they're going to be on opposite ends. So my first measurement is 12 inches. I've actually wrote the number 12. The measurement on the other selvage is 32 inches, so I've marked it at 32. When I come back up to the top, my next measurement is 50 inches and then 10 inches. When you open up the fabric, you're going to have the marks along the one edge, the marks along the other. You're going to be able to line them up. Now this is that full 45 width of the fabric with the selvages still on. So you're going to be able to use the dowels. And you're going to be able to place the dowels on one mark and up on the other. I'm going to use the pencil to show you on the paper. So I have the one mark, I have the top mark. I'm going to put that dowel down, and I'm going to be able to draw a line from corner to corner. Then I'll be able to do the next, and the next. That's going to give me 3 wedges. This is going to be the sides and the back of the teepee. This is going to be the front section of the teepee, which is where the door is going to be. When you finish cutting, you're going to have 3 pieces in this wedge shape. This is the back and the 2 sides. And the 2 sides that you cut equal the front. The one will be the left side, the other one will be the right side. You're going to know the center because the center is that one with the straight edge. And this is the wedge shape. This side edge equaled the 35 inches, so we cut off the bottom. What we also need to do is trim off the seam allowance on the top. Let's make the door first, and then we can continue with the sides. So for the door opening, we need to finish the 2 fronts and the bottom. Just take your fabric and roll it once, and then roll it a second time. When you do the rolled edge, do what you're most comfortable doing. A 1/2 inch rolled and then another 1/2 inch works out perfect. Whatever you do, just keep it consistent whenever we do these rolled edges. So you're going to have a rolled edge along the two fronts and a rolled edge along the bottom. The top and the sides, we do nothing with yet. So the rolled hem is that 1/2 inch over and another 1/2 inch, and you stitch down. So you're going to have the front seam and that bottom edge. So we have the front opening and the bottom stitched together. We're going to overlap this by 5 inches. So you have 5 inches overlapped. Make sure that the bottoms are straight and the edges match up. You can put a couple of pins here if you want to hold it together while you're working with this. Each of these sections will need to be the same when they're done. So what we need to do is add a top piece on to make this the same as the others. The piece to start at the top, we need a piece 19 inches by 10 inches. That piece is going to be trimmed down to follow the same angle. If you want, you can use the pieces that you've cut off the bottom. However, you're going to have to stitch them together to make one long piece. I'm okay with that, so I'm going to place the right sides together and do a stitch all the way along the top, attaching those two pieces so that I can use it on the top. Once the selvage has been cut off, you're going to be able to match these seams. You won't have to worry about the extra. We're going to trim that off later. But I recommend doing it after because we're going to make all pieces the same size. So let's work on the two sides and the back. The pieces are 10 inches up at the top and 50 inches along the bottom. The directions say to cut off the selvages and put a rolled hem on. I want to change it up a little bit, and I want to put pockets on the inside. Now you could put them on the inside or the outside. I'm going to do them on the inside so that way when the child's inside he can put books along the outer edges of the inside of the teepee. We'll need to cut off that selvage edge on all 3 bottoms. To make the pockets, you're going to need 1.5 yards of extra fabric. Because this is 50 inches, you need a minimum of 50 inches. With that 1.5 yards, if you fold it in half, you're going to have 4 long strips, and that would be the pocket size. I now have 4 strips at about 10.5 inches, and they're the 1.5 yards length. This part is going to be the top. This will get attached to the bottom. So along the edge, you need to do a rolled hem, and you'll do it to 3 pieces. One, well, you can put aside for another project. Maybe a pillow for inside the teepee. Match up the bottom 2 edges. So you're having that long rectangle over top of that triangular shape. When that's been done, press it right along that seam and top stitch 1/2 inch. This is now going to be created into pockets. To do that, we just need to make some stitching lines. You can cut that piece off from the right side to start with, and then you'll be able to judge where you can put your pockets. I'm going to start from the edge and do a 10 inch, 10, 10, and 10. Since it's 50, just going to divide them up into 10-inch pockets. Start at the top, stitch down, and then go right back up and double stitch this area so it's nice and strong. And just for ease of sewing after, I've stitched those sides down so that they're not in my way. I now have some nice big pockets on the bottom of my teepee. If you've chosen not to put the pockets on, you need to do a rolled hem on the bottom. Now we're going to lay all 4 pieces together so that we make sure they are the same size. I've laid all 4 pieces together. That top flap I've put at the bottom, and I've laid the other 3 pieces on top. They should be very close to being the same size. But at this point, I can make them the same size. So I'm able to cut off this extra. You want all 4 pieces to be the same size. With all the little ends trimmed off and that top squared up, do a rolled seam here, just like before. 1/2 inch over, and then another 1/2. Now all of these pieces are going to be the same size. With the teepee body done, we need to do the joining strips. They are going to cover the poles as they hold up the teepee. Each side is going to be sandwiched in between this long piece. So this piece will need to be the same size as that side, which will be approximately 47 inches. Cut 5 widths of fabric at 5 inches. And you're going to be able to take one of the pieces and cut it in 4 to add it on the end, so that you're going to have a long enough piece to fit this area. Do a rolled hem on each side so that this long piece is going to measure whatever your measurement is for this area. Put this 5-inch piece, fold it in half so the wrong sides are touching and the raw edges are along that one long edge. From there, I'm going to add on my other sides. So I have the top up near the top and the bottoms. I'm going to take the one piece and flip it over so that the right sides are matching along that raw edge. And this is going to be sandwiched in between. So I'm going to be able to do that to one edge, and I'm going to do it to the other edge. When you open it up, you're going to have 2 sides with this tube or this tunnel. This is where that wood dowel is going to go in. I would recommend doing some kind of a finishing stitch here, either a zigzag, or if you have a serger, you can do a serge stitch all the way down. And as you stitch all the sides together, it won't matter what order you're going to do, because what you're doing is you're sewing them all together like a very big tube that's larger at the bottom, coming up to the top. With all the seams done, the sewing is complete. We just need to assemble it. I've already put the ends on my dowels, so I'm going to use the end where that 10-inch hole is put in, and I'm going to start from the bottom and go right up to the top, and I'm going to do all 4 channels. And that dowel is just going to fit all the way right up to the top. Now I'm going to put that rope right through and just leave it temporarily until you get it to the floor and we can open it up. I needed a bigger room to set this up, so I apologize for the audio. First thing is, when you have all of the holes up at the top roped through, just tie a knot to hold those 4 poles together. Now just pull the legs out and the top will work its way just as it needs to. Take any of the 2 legs and pull them apart. Once you've pulled them apart, just adjust the fabric so that the fabric is sitting approximately the same distance along the bottom of the feet. It will just make it easier to open up nice and flat. You could just do that by pulling up on the fabric. Then continue by just pulling those legs apart. Once you have it all set up, you are going to be able to just take that rope and twist it right along the top. Twist it nice and tight as you go along. And when you come to the end, tie a nice strong knot. That's all there is to setting up the teepee. I've taken whatever leftover fabric I've had and I've just made 2 simple pillows. Now this is a nice area for the kids to play or read in. We have all of the pockets that work all the way around the perimeter. Now if you want, you could have had the pockets on the outside. This just gives you an idea on the size. Because we started with a 50-inch bottom, by the time we have the seam allowance, we're looking at about 47-inch square bottom of the teepee. It's a perfect size for a child to play in. You can also take it apart and store it. It's also machine washable. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.